Tonight, education sector crisis as Ghana's pre-tertiary public education grinds to a halt, with all four major labor unions declaring an indefinite nationwide strike with immediate effect.
Under the current circumstances, to publicly communicate to Ghanaians on our intention to go on strike.
We tell you why the workers insist not even the IMF bailout will convince them to back down.
As for the IMF and its ramifications and conditionality, that is not what we are looking for. There is already a lot of mismanagement in the system, which when corrected, there will not be any need for IMF bailout.
Tonight, the IMF team is set to arrive in Ghana tomorrow, and already government says we should all brace ourselves for tough times ahead as the freebies begin to disappear.
Please, what I can tell you is that the IMF is not a fan of subsidies
of
any kind. And you would have to make a very good case to hold on to any subsidies that you may have in your fiscal framework already. So it will be some set of difficult conversations there. But tough times call for tough people.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone. Tonight, there is major crisis on the education front. Beginning from tomorrow morning, your children from kindergarten to senior high school will be left on their own without teachers in the classrooms. All four major teacher unions have today declared a nationwide strike with immediate effect. The teachers are demanding the payment of cost of living allowance or COLA. The Teachers and Education Workers Union, TEU, the Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAT, the National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, and the Coalition of Concerned Teachers, CCT, have for months now been demanding that 20% of their basic salary is paid them as COLA. They insist they need the allowance to help mitigate the impact of the rising cost of living. But after a June 30 deadline was exhausted, the workers have withdrawn their services both in and outside the classroom. Here's the General Secretary of NAT, Thomas Musa, addressing a joint press conference by the workers earlier today.
In education can no longer bear the hardship. Even more so, we reject the inequality of salaries in the public services of this country. And I want to take this particular aspect again. Even more so, we reject the inequality of salaries in the public service of this country. Yeah. We have been compelled, under the current circumstances, to publicly communicate to Ghanaians on our intention to go on strike. Having gone past the June 30th, 2022 deadline, we gave government for the payment of cost living allowance. Consequently, we have decided to embark on a strike action effective today, Monday, July 4th, 2022, in the year of our Lord. By this, we are informing the general public that we are withdrawing all our services in all the pre-tertiary education space, teaching and non-teaching staff.
Please say that again. Teaching and non-teaching.
By this, we are informing the general public that we are withdrawing all our services in all the pre-tertiary education space.
My colleague Manuel Cranting was at this press conference and joins me on the telephone line right now. Manuel, so from what we heard, Tomorrow morning, we should not expect the teachers in the classrooms, the children, right from kindergarten to senior high school, will be without teachers in the classroom. Has been communicated and will be rolled out across the country.
Exactly so, Evans. In fact, while the press conference was underway, we got signals that teachers in the various regions were being told to actually vacate the classrooms, even as the press conference was going on. We're told that that was an official indication for the unions and their individual members across the entire country to indeed, lay down their tools and vacate the classrooms. So yes, it started from today. It is expected to be escalated tomorrow and subsequent days, Evans.
But I need to ask you. I mean, we're all aware of where the country is currently, to the point where the government has decided now to go for an IMF bailout. We know what the workers are asking for: 20% of their salary, give it to us as a cost of living allowance. Are they aware of the current economic circumstances and possibly government's inability to pay?
Well, Evans, at the press conference, the leadership of the four unions made it categorically clear that indeed their agitations for better pay and remuneration had actually started before conversations about a return to the IMF actually were brought to the table. For instance, at the time in 2021, when government effected a 4% increment in their salaries, the conversation were already there. In 2022 earlier this year, when government effected a 7% salary increment for them, which of course they had said was woefully inadequate, the conversations were already there. They say that they are not going to budge and allow the issues of a possible return to the IMF to actually derail their request and demand for the COLA.
Now, the meeting on Friday, we saw it as an attempt to water down the request, because that is what government will always do. They will call for a meeting and they will say, because we are engaging, you don't have a right to embark on a strike action. We saw far in advance this move, but we think that it is time, because we have waited for too long. Some of us started calling for this COLA way back in February 2022. Before May Day, we issued a statement, and all this while, no single invitation came forth. And that is why we think that we have gotten to our wits' end, and therefore we must make this declaration. As for the IMF and its, ramifications and conditionalities, that is not what we are looking for. There is already a lot of mismanagement in the system, which when corrected, there will not be any need for the country to go for IMF bailout.
Joining me on the telephone right now is Thomas Musa. He is the General Secretary of the Ghana National Association of Teachers. Joins me on the telephone line with Mr. Ofosu Samwa, who is with the Labour Commission. Thank you, gentlemen, for the time. Mr. Musa, I'm grateful that you could join me. You make the point about the IMF and that there is alleged mismanagement in the economy, but it's also about government's ability to pay, is it not?
So thank you very much. Good evening to yourself and to all your listeners. It is important that we place the issues within perspective. Now, as far back as 2021, when the 4% was negotiated reluctantly, we had a wage opener clause that provides that at any point in time when the economic situation of our members are dire, we can call for opening of the wage opener clause. We didn't go for that. We endured some kind of difficulties. The 2022, the current we also went for 7% reluctantly because of same thing that we did not also even ask for the wage opener clause. But at this particular point in time, given all the economic indicators and what is staring the faces of our members, we don't have any option. In fact, we could have gone for the wage opener clause, which provides that at any time that the economic situation of our members is that we can call for it Because that one, if you go for it, you will have to pay for Senate and all the related remuneration items that comes with a normal salary. But we didn't opt for that one. We opted for a simple one, and that is cost of living allowance. School are just pushing workers, particularly teachers, in this particular year, so that the 2023 we can negotiate for the base pay. That is why we asked for the 20. We asked for 20% COLA. So this particular thing has been on the it has been in the pipeline, and it is not today that we started this particular discussions on negotiation. Yeah.
Do you realistically believe government can afford to pay you that at this time?
If you ask me that question, since I've also indicated to you, as far back as 2021, we have endured this particular, and also talking about the issue of human security here. You are talking about the issue of human security, because if you are dealing with workers that cannot take care of their basic necessities of life, then we don't forget that the issues of human security it's an integral part of national security. So certainly, we need to take care of these particular things and provide workers with some kind of a sigh of relief so that they can actually ply their trade. It's very important to get it done. In all the economies, in times like this, government will always make a way out to see how best the workers can rise up and increase productivity, given the current economic situation.
You mentioned the current economic situation, and nobody begrudges you. We all live in this country, know how tough times are. But for a government that has nearly thrown in the towel to the IMF and say, bail us out, that's an indication that times are really dire, and to put it mildly, possibly even broke. And so they need the IMF's help here. That clearly puts this whole conversation in perspective, does it not? About whether the demand, yes, although legitimate, whether the employer can afford.
Yeah, so if you are talking for the employer, then who speaks for the worker? Can the worker afford? The question is, can the worker afford? If a worker has been given 4% increment in 2021, at a time that the worker has an opportunity to ask for the wage opener clause, look at it and ask that, let us reopen the negotiation. The worker didn't do that. Then in 2022, same thing happens. Then at this particular time, the worker is saying that, please, given the kind of sacrifices I have made, please, can you cushion me a bit? So who speaks for the worker here? So please, it is about the system, the situation that workers have found themselves, particularly teachers. Everything about we are not even talking about anything much. The basic necessities of life that we enable the teacher or the worker performs his or her duty. These are the things that we are talking about here.
You acknowledge that the decision you've taken today will effectively shut down pre-tertiary education in Ghana.
My brother, at all material time, teachers will hardly do what we've done today. That sometimes when the reality is done on us, that look, the best way we can get these things done and to communicate better, we need to get it done. That is why all those things are normally provided for in a system of, how they call it, democracy, in a system of governance. And let me draw your attention to something. Look, as far back as 2021, we have been drawing attention to this particular thing about the situation that workers have found themselves in. So, going to that particular aspect, certainly, you cannot go there without also looking aside of the situation that the workers have found themselves in. So, certainly, the employer will need to see how best the worker could be pushing to get the work done and also increase productivity. Yeah.
Thankfully, stay with me, Mr. Musa. Thankfully, I've just been joined by the Executive Secretary of the National Labour Commission, Mr. Fuso Sama. Mr. Sama, thank you too for your time here on Top Story.
Yes, thank you for calling me.
Has this formally been communicated to the Commission?
No, we haven't received a formal communication. We heard of the news and we applied for a copy, which was sent to me by electronic communication.
So what do you do now?
Yes, at the moment, we have spoken to the minister, drawn his attention. Of course, he was also aware. And so we have written to the Minister and of Education Employment, the Director General of Ghana Education Service, the Director General Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, the teacher unions concerned for an immediate engagement and resolution of the the cost of living allowance associated release they are looking at, and to report back to the commission. In the meantime, we are advising the teacher unions to rescind their decision and discontinue the strike and pave way for the process of engagement to ensue.
So you want them in the classroom immediately?
In the classroom, in the office, or wherever their duty demands them to be, so that their concerns will be looked at. We sympathize with them. Yes. At least when it comes to cost of living and all that, all of us are in Ghana. Myself, I'm here, and we know what is going on. And in the same way, I heard you talking about the government's predicament as well. And in all this, we should also be looking at the law and what we can do within the space of time and law. So we are advising them. The most important thing is that the government and its state agencies in charge will engage them and quickly solve the problem.
But they just indicated that they have asked for this for quite a while. It's since 2021. Nothing seemed to happen. They've not been called to sit to negotiate, and so they've been forced to do this. Isn't the NLC a bit too late in making these calls, and the workers really justified to take the decision because of government failure to sit with them over the time?
I don't think the NLC is late. I think that we are late because this is the time calling me. You have only called me at the time when they are strike. If we were not doing anything. We only come out for you to know what you are doing. Only when you call us to find out. In advising the minister or calling upon any ministry or agency to engage its staff or workers in that space to have things done are normally not done in the public. So the fact that we are talking now doesn't mean we have not been doing anything.
So specifically, what happened over the last few months?
We earlier on heard of that of TUC when they held the press conference in Kaswa. And in that, we have called upon the ministry to do something about it. So I don't think if there's anything you say we are late. We are never late. We are always alert.
Okay, I guess the question is specifically, since this was raised in 2021, has there been any specific meeting that you've called that was honored by the ministry to sit and talk?
We advise them to engage. It hasn't been before us. This cooler just came up. It is not 2021. They did not ask for cooler in 2021.
To be fair, I mean, they've been asking for this for a while now.
Anyway, they have not written to us. If you work at FM, there is a problem, and you call on your employers to do it, not doing it. It is only when it gets out of hand between the two of you that you bring a third party to help settle, and that may be the national thing. So whatever calls that they may have made earlier on will be between them and their employers. And it is not for us to be, I don't know, for want of a better word, to be inquisitive and be going around to see what is happening elsewhere. We always expect that things, parties are able to negotiate on their issues and get a settlement that they will own. And rather than we come in. It is only when it is out of hand, like in this circumstance, where a strike has been declared, that yes, even when nobody invites us, we are enjoined or we have a call to get in and make sure that it's settled.
I mean, teachers, if I correct me if I'm wrong, are an essential service. If that's the case, can they embark on a strike such as this under the law?
They don't belong to the essential service providers. No.
So they are allowed to.
They have the right to embark on a strike, except that it must be a strike which is backed by law.
Is this
before
one?
You go on strike, you must write to the National Labour Commission. You must write to your employers in declaring your intention to go on strike, but not by a press conference. No. So they have a right to go on strike, but not through the means they have chosen this time.
Mr. Musa, you haven't followed the rules and what the law says. Are you willing to take the NLC's plea to return whilst talks begin with the government?
Please, we have come far regarding this thing. Always, these concerns have been on the drawing board for all this while, and we have been talking about it. In any case, let me give you three main things. Look, if you look at the condition of workers, they are with Ghanaian workers, and particularly teachers, we are the least paid in the sub-region. That is number one. Number two, if you are working and with the money you are taking, you cannot even take care of your basic necessities. And given the current economic environment, all the money that you even or to be able to meet your basic services and needs has been eroded. The thing is that this thing will create a dire consequence for our people who will be going on pension. You see, so these are the kind of things we are talking about. And so when you see workers or particularly teachers getting to this particular level, it will not always start in a day. So this is where we are. So once we have spoken about it, as for all the issue of legality and all, we have always been here. So this is where we are, and we have made our position and our intentions clear, and we therefore decided that's the option for us to go. The rest of the things, we will take care of that.
Okay, so the NLC says they're advising that you return. Will you return?
Please, I'm saying that this is where we are now. At any point in time when we need to get back, we'll consult amongst ourselves and we'll take it out from there.
And very briefly, have you heard anything from the government at all since you intimated that this is going to be your action?
Well, regarding meetings and all that, I think the onus is upon them now to make that particular move. So we'll take it out from there.
Thank you, Thomas Musa. He is the General Secretary of the Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAT. And so if you're just joining us, a breaking news story today, it's one of those unprecedented moments when all the teacher unions in the pre-tertiary sector have called a nationwide strike. Normally you see NAGRATs go alone or NAT go alone. NAT rarely does it, but rarely will you see all four. That is NAT, TEWU, NAGRAT, and CCT, all at the same time, jointly withdrawing their service. That is what has happened tonight. Effectively, it will shut down education, the pre-tertiary level from kindergarten all the way up to the senior high school, unless something happens to intervene and have it addressed. But of course, this is happening in the bigger context of the current economic crisis that the country is in a firm grip of. The government has decided to go to the IMF for a bailout. In the last couple of hours, there's been a statement from the government on what the next steps will be, and an assurance to all of us about government determination to get something that the workers can live with. My colleague Kweku Asante is in the studio with me with details of this. The workers are clear tonight that not even the IMF bailout and the conditionalities that may come will force them to back down. What is government saying in this statement they just issued?
Evans, the statement says, subsequent to the directive by the President of the Republic, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the Ministry of Finance hereby announces the commencement of engagement with the International Monetary Fund to support Ghana's economic program. Pursuant to this, a delegation from the fund is scheduled to arrive in Accra on Tuesday, 5th July, to commence in-person meetings with the government of Ghana on Wednesday, 6th July 2022. The ministry further take this opportunity to assure Ghanaians of the government's commitment to successfully negotiate a program with the IMF in the coming months in support of Ghana's economic recovery, signed by the Public Relations Unit of the Finance Ministry. So the team is arriving tomorrow. The assurance is that government is bent on getting a successful outcome of this. We'll speak to Dr. Tue Champon very shortly. So what should this program look like for us? But in the context of everything we've heard tonight from the teachers, we heard from Kojo Nkrumah a little bit on about what we should expect. One of the things we should expect is that the freebies, including subsidies, will stop, and a bit more tough time ahead.
There's a whole raft of expenses that we would have to look at as we sit it may not be a wise thing for me, even before we sit into those negotiations, to start, posturing on these ones. I think we should give ourselves the opportunity to look at that. So on the revenue side, on the expenditure side, on the debt side, the time is now coming for those negotiations to take place. What I can tell you is that the IMF is not a fan of subsidies of any kind. And you would have to make a very good case to hold on to any subsidies that you may have in your fiscal framework already. So it will be some set of difficult conversations there, but tough times call for tough people. And we'll look to deal with those.
So that's information, Minister. There, Dr. Theo Champon joins us on Zoom right now with thoughts on this. Dr. Theo Champon, thank you for your time. And Dr. Theo Champon is a petroleum economist and joins us with thoughts on this. Doc, so the ministry statement says that government is determined and assuring of its commitment to successfully negotiate a program. What does a successful IMF program look like in this particular case of Ghana? What should it look like?
Good evening and pleasure to be here. I think the answer to that also lies in the response by the information minister that there are some tough negotiations that lie ahead, particularly because in the IMF has a basket of potential programs that countries can enter into. But in the context of Ghana, we're looking possibly at an extended credit facility, or what is called also an extended fund facility, EFF. There are two things that comes with that. You get some money or funding, and we're looking, I think, possibly at about 2 to 3 billion. And then on top of that, you have to commit to a series of reform programs, right? In trying to fix the very ills that bedevil the economy. And within that is where I think we need to go back to the last program in 2015. So there were three broad areas that the government then agreed with the fund to implement. One was on restoring debt sustainability. And in fact, if you look at all the documents back then, the difficulties and the challenges with the economy are pretty much the same thing that we're talking about now. A high indebtedness, inflation going up, and then the mismatch between monetary policy and fiscal policy. The second aspect of that program was actually then strengthening the monetary policy framework and how the whole inflation targeting regime works, and the central bank's role, and the extent to which it can finance the deficit financing of the budget. And the last one was on financial sector stability, cleaning up the banking system. The last one was largely achieved, but the first two on debt sustainability and monetary policy coordination, we achieved some of them, but not all. So these are the issues that I think in this new program would very much be on the table for discussion, and particularly on the issue of debt from both the revenue and then the expenditure side. And the minister was talking about, some of the subsidies and other sort of government programs that are literally choking the fiscal space. One of them being things like free SHS, one district, one factory. All of these things are going to be on the table for critical discussion. Even if they're not going to be scrapped entirely, there will be room for some efficiency savings, and this will be part of the quantitative performance criteria and indicative targets that the fund would put to the government as part of the measurement criteria for any program that they would adopt. But the first thing, as the IMF team gets into Ghana, would be doing something they call the Article 4 assessment. So basically, they're going to do a diagnostic of the state of the Ghanaian economy using different data points. They will meet with key government institutions, and here I think three of them are important: the Ministry of Finance, the Bank of Ghana, and then the Ghana Statistical Service. And then they go and do some sort of analysis, including the debt sustainability analysis, and on the basis of that, come and engage the government on what could possibly be offered to them on funding and the subsequent structural reforms that they need to implement.
I see a lot of belt tightening in everything else you said there. And we are talking about this at a time when we just had a very unprecedented move by all the teacher unions in the pre-tertiary sector, asking for 20% of their basic salary paid to them as COLA. In all honesty, knowing what the IMF will do, is this something that the economy can take and government can afford, with the IMF holding a whip now over us?
I mean, look, we should have been doing some of the belt tightening ourselves a long time ago in that respect, right? And the idea is not that we shouldn't spend. The biggest problem is the quality of spending and the areas that we're spending and the issues of value for money, contracts. You can even add in corruption and all of those things that really, with or without an IMF program, we should be doing and addressing these things ourselves anyway. So for sure, I think that there would be some tightening. I think there will even be some ceilings on the hiring within the public service, possibly. So there might actually be like we had in 2009 to 2012, but also in the last program 2015 to 2018, there might be some net freeze on hiring in certain sectors of the public service. And then when it comes to things like what the teacher unions are fighting for, COLA and cost of living adjustment, that will be subject to the normal tripartite process, except that with where we find ourselves now, I struggle to see how government would actually be able to meet that 20% in cost of living adjustment they're asking for, because there's just not that fiscal space available.
Dr. Theo Champo is an economist. I'm grateful that you joined us. And on that, we have more on Newsnight, which starts right now.